What's going on, everybody? We are back again to talk about a series that I've been wanting to do on this channel for almost as long as this channel has been alive, and it finally has an English translation. I'm really excited to talk about this because this is such a cult series that has been alive for I think 20 something years, since 2001 give or take is when the first issue or the first part or whatever of this series dropped. And I feel really lucky to be able to read an official translation of it thanks to Seven Seas, and I'm extremely grateful to Seven Seas for adapting this series and for delivering it to us and for dropping it in these hefty boys. I'm not sure if you're watching this and you've read this or not, but this is a Let's Talk About. So the point of my Let's Talk About videos is that I make them accessible to everybody, to people that have read the series and to people that haven't read it. So there will be panels and there will be spoilers, though I'm going to try to do my best to keep those spoilers to a minimum. I don't think I'm going to be spoiling major plot points of the story, and even if I did start spoiling certain things, it's such a dense story and there's so much going on that without knowing the finer little intricate details of it, it wouldn't even make a ton of sense even if I did start spoiling it, because there's just so much going on within this story. And like I said, it's a huge book, it's super dense, and yeah, I cannot wait to get into this. This is going to be a little bit longer than my typical Let's Talk Abouts because of the fact that this thing is so huge and I wanted to cover so much of it. The books I usually cover in Let's Talk Abouts are a lot shorter. They're like half the size of this thing. But hey, I am here for it. If you want to stick around with me and go through this journey together, I will appreciate the absolute hell out of it. So let's do this. Let's talk about Homunculus. Homunculus is a cult manga series written by Hideo Yamamoto, who is also responsible for Ichi the Killer, which is another cult classic, and Voyeur. Homunculus began serialization in 2003 and ended its run in 2011, collected into 15 total volumes. It is also one hell of a tale I've had the privilege to embark on now that it has an official English translation. Our first sight as readers is that of a man curled up in the fetal position. The panel right next to this is of a fetus in the womb. I'm not the greatest at analyzing and dissecting stories, so this won't be that. This is also a Let's Talk About, so spoilers will not be massive, and they will hopefully not be story ruiners. However, going back to the fetus, this plays a moderate part in the story. We are told at one point about newborns and the soft spot on their heads, and at this stage in their lives, babies have a sixth sense or some cognitive understanding of the world beyond what a normal person can fathom. Don't take me 100% on that, as I've only read it once. I could have completely misread or misinterpreted the line. What feels to be a huge part of Homunculus is human understanding or the human condition, while also opening up a person's consciousness to the otherworldly, the paranormal. We don't get a whole lot of information about our lead guy, Nakoshi Susumu, at first. Even as the story progresses, he remains pretty detached from humanity, like an introvert. He seems much happier to be alone with his car, feeling a much stronger kinship to machinery than he does to humanity. He sleeps in his car in a parking space directly adjacent a high-rise hotel and a park where homeless men live. This odd sort of limbo between the two worlds does come into play later in the story. He has one foot in each world, so to speak. He shares meals with the homeless dudes who refer to him as Car Guy, and then pukes it up later. It's like he doesn't want to offend them, their generosity in feeding him, but he also sees himself as being above them. Every time one of the bums has asked him where he is from, he gives a different answer. We do learn more about this odd man through world clues, as anything he says is liable to be false, given we are shown his nature as a compulsive liar. He will also force and hold a smile in the company of others until he's alone. and then it drops completely. Here we have one hell of an enigmatic character on display. This feels like something Brandon Cronenberg would make, like Possessor or Infinity Pool, especially when we get into an integral part of the story, which is trepanation. Trepanation is the ancient surgical act of drilling a hole into a person's head, either to alleviate post-trauma brain swelling or to cure a mentally ill person. The purpose of the act in this story, however, is for the sake of awakening a person's sixth sense. I kept wanting to liken this to Terrence McKenna, but like an Earth 2 evil Terrence McKenna who, instead of opening up your consciousness with drugs, he wants to drill a hole into your head. I have enjoyed the storytelling here pretty well, as it sets up our world and lead character Nakoshi and shows us right away that he isn't a reliable voice. We also learn he deeply cares for his car as if it were his lover. Once we understand this world and we get an idea of who this man is, it's time to throw a wrench into the works. This is when we are introduced to the guy, Manabu Ito, that wants to perform the surgery on Nakoshi. I won't go too much into that beyond surface level, him wanting to understand human beings, whereas Nakoshi feels a bond with machines, two polar opposites. For a character to do something they really don't want to, there has to be an inciting incident. Nakoshi isn't going to go through with the surgery until he feels he has no choice. So that is exactly what happens. He's put into a predicament where he has no choice but to go on this journey and carry the story forward. I did want to keep this short, but the more I read of Homunculus, the more I wanted to say, the more I wanted to talk about. And it's wild, this is the same dude who did the manga for Ichi the Killer. And Ichi the Killer, the film, is one of my favorite films ever. I actually have the Blu-ray. I have the Blu-ray. I remember watching that on YouTube back in the day when you could watch like full episodes of anime broken up into like 3 parts, or even watch like films broken up into just random parts. And I saw Ichi the Killer that way, and it was pretty wild. And he also did another series called Voyeur. I don't think Voyeur or Ichi the Killer are available in English, but here's to hoping that Homunculus does well and we get those in English, because I do want to read so much more of Hideo Yamamoto's work. I'll leave out big chunks of what is going on to not get too heavy into more spoilers, but this is a tale where you will want to pay attention, as events and ideas will be referenced later, and often including a conversation about the development of the human brain. This manga also does a great job of building a certain level of unease. It feels like the panels in which no words are uttered are where the most is said. There is a poetry to visual storytelling, speaking volumes without words. When done correctly, emphasizing the right moments and casting the reader's eye to a specific scene, a spectrum of thought can be opened. What was the mangaka's aim here? What were they trying to get us to understand? A great example of this is right after the trepanation surgery. Our lead feels like he's being watched, and though he verbally brushes it off, we see his hand shake. Parts of Homunculus really remind me of Gurosagi Corpse Delivery Service, though that story leans into the paranormal much earlier and to a more heightened, almost campy sense, with the dead literally attacking and killing people. In Homunculus, living, breathing people seem much more dangerous than anything otherworldly. We do get into the supernatural aspect of it as well, with a section I will vaguely cover for the sake of, again, not going overboard with spoilers. Nakoshi does seem to gain the ability to see what others cannot, and in gaining this ability, he uses it at first to gain insight into the inner selves of people walking down a crowded street. One guy has a hole at the back of his head, like he's a brainless idiot. Another guy is split down the middle, 2 halves, as if he has a split personality. Another woman is walking on her hands, but her suit is on as if she were standing erect and not upside down. Guessing this is saying she feels like a sideshow attraction, a clown doing party tricks. There were two others I didn't quite get. So this section of this video is going to be my final thoughts, and I do have a nice chunk of those because I did not, expect going into this for it to be as insane as it is. I already knew that it was going to be a phenomenal story because, it's so lauded and it's been a cult classic story for so long. And my first intro to it was seeing, like Reddit posts and seeing people talk about it on Instagram and whatnot, because I follow a bunch of manga Instagram accounts, and just seeing that one super iconic image, which I'll post right there, got my juices flowing and got me wanting to check it out. And then to find out, it wasn't in English. And earlier I had said that I didn't think his other works were available in English, but Voyeur does have an English translation. I don't know if Ichi the Killer does officially or not, but I'll find out and I'll put right here whether it does or not. But I am wholly excited to finish this review out. I hope you're still with me. I hope you're still watching this. It has been an absolute journey to read this manga, and it had to be a journey of a video to do it any sort of justice. And I hope that you've enjoyed this video, and I hope that you've enjoyed sticking around with me. We are going to close it out now, and these are going to be my final thoughts, and I'll probably close the video out with those final thoughts. So as always, I just want to say thank you all so much for hanging out with me, and I hope that you enjoy the rest of this video. Hideo Yamamoto shines through the most in a terrifying scene that takes place in a peep show sort of establishment. I won't go too deep into the scene, but we see a girl made of glass essentially morph into a sand demon. If I saw that in person, I would 100% shit my pants. She and the many homunculi we get are described to us as Kiryo, a living ghost, a creature in Japanese mythology said to be sent out of a living person due to intense feelings of love, hate, etc. The breakdown we get for what homunculus means in real life or in the storyverse makes sense in the context. It sets you up to believe one thing and then immediately delivers another. There is a great scene where Nakoshi is looking at mentally unstable people and he doesn't see their inner selves. It feels pretty evident the reason for this is that they're not hiding it. Normal, quote-unquote, people will try to hide their fears and traumas and may not wear them on their sleeves, and that's where his ability comes into play. He can see what they're hiding in cryptic visions that make sense only after you sit there and paste together the clues. I love a story that even at the end keeps you guessing. Homunculus opens up more questions at the end of part 1 that I'm guessing we'll have answered in the next omnibus collection. I'm a firm believer in the idea that human beings are more terrifying than anything paranormal, given the horrible and disgusting things people are willing to do to one another, from cartel executions to serial killings and mass shootings. Human beings are terrifying. And even more unsettling is what is beneath it all on the subconscious level, which is a factor of this story. What are people thinking? What are they hiding? This feels like a story of tells. Everyone has a tell. A twitch of the eye, or a sudden rapid tapping of fingers, or a leg. A person's shoulder slumps when they're uncomfortable or lying. I find myself wondering if this is a psychological thriller or a rogue psychologist's manifesto. What I do know is that this first volume's cliffhanger left me wanting more. Even with this massive let's talk about, I don't even think I've ruined your experience here. My goal is only to heighten it, to offer some ideas as to the main goal of Homunculus. I mean, there are still 2 more massive books yet to come. We can't possibly know everything, unless you already read it. which I'm assuming a lot of you probably have. As someone who is reading this for the first time, who has never consumed Homunculus before, I feel like everything we've learned so far is subject to change when Volume 2 comes out. Thank you for watching. See you all in the next one.
By the hands of God, I stand as a wrench between your wheeling cog, fastening my belt, bracing myself to withstand against all odds. Himself shadow on his battle ready, murder dogs, rip the skin off your horses, triumph to smash the sorceress, lethal forces. The failure of your ambitions is more painful than divorces. Smash its own piece on the doorway, when the door hits, that's it, call it quits. Zipped up in plastic, cremated, melted like elastic. Dreams don't mean shit, in this life they don't exist.